The prayer will be offered by the delegate from Charles and Prince George's counties. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning. Let us bow our heads for prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, as we embark upon this 16th day of the 449th session of the Maryland House of Delegates, we first thank you for all the blessings that you've bestowed upon us. Our prayer is that you allow your presence to continue to fill this chamber. We further pray that you continue to fill the Speaker of this House with courage and the strength to continue to lead us in a manner which is pleasing and acceptable unto you. Father, please continue to grant in each of us a spirit of unity so that we may look beyond our differences to find common ground for the good of all Marylanders. We truly believe in your word, Father, that it has been said that you will never leave us nor forsake us, nor have you brought us this far to leave us. Strengthen each and every commitment to service, and forever remind us that true leadership is found in the uplifting of others. May we remain meek enough to understand each other's position, but strong enough to allow us always to do the right thing in your eyes as we strive to create a brighter, more just world for all, guided always by your will. These things we humbly ask, and it is in your holy name that we pray. And all God's people say, amen.
Amen. Corin Cole.
Madam Speaker.
Actually, I just wanted to say, make sure that she tells to happen. Thank you. Has everyone recorded their presence? If so, the clerk would take the call. There being 132 members present, the House is now in session. The clerk will read the journal from the previous day.
Annapolis, Maryland, January the 28th, 2026.
Recognizing the Deputy Majority Leader. Recognizing the Majority Leader.
So much be considered the reading of the journal.
So order, petitions, memorial, and other papers. Appointment. The clerk will read the appointment.
Resolved that the Speaker makes the following appointment. The Honorable Janelle Wilkins, Assistant Parliamentarian, Bywater Sylvia Secret, Chief Clerk.
Hearing no objection, the appointment is adopted. The clerk will read the bond initiatives and the committee assignment.
Introductory House Bond Initiatives number 10, January 29, 2026, referred to appropriations. Introductory House Bond Initiatives number 11, January 29, 2026, referred to appropriations. Introductory House Bond Initiatives number 12, January 29, 2026, referred to appropriations.
Thank you. Before we start, I want to say good morning. And I want to remind us that today will be a long day, probably tomorrow as well. I want to remind us that these issues are very emotional and personal to all of us, and that we must be civil and respectful. I want to also remind us that it's tough to listen when we're all speaking, so if we can please try to keep it very low, and let's be respectful of each other. And remind you to give me grace, okay, as I learned this. All right, we're going to start with a report of the Committee on Judiciary, report number 1. The clerk will read the bill.
House Bill 444, Public Safety Immigration Enforcement Agreements, Prohibitor, favorable amendments, amendment number 1.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Move so much be considered the reading of the amendment.
So order.
Amendment number 1 makes the bill an emergency bill. Amendment number 2 requires for the immediate exercise of the termination provision contained in the Immigration Enforcement Agreement on the effective date of the act. Please so much move the amendments.
The question before the House is the adoption of the amendment. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, say no. The ayes have it. The amendment is adopted. The question now is the adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, say no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Recognizing the Deputy Minority Leader. Is it Assistant Minority Leader? Your assistant, fine.
That's funny. All right. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
That should make you feel good for the rest of the day. Go ahead.
Yeah, there you go. That's funny. I'd like to move to special order this bill to the appropriate time tomorrow for the purposes of amendments.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. We will accept the special order. However, we ask that you please get your amendments in as soon as possible in preparation for tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so the question before the House is to special order. There's no objection. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, say no. The ayes have it. House Bill 444 having special order until tomorrow. Please make sure that you give the amendments ahead of time to the floor leader and the chair so they know what they're dealing with, and just out of courtesy, okay? Thank you. Special order, calendar, House Bill 488. The clerk will read the bill.
House Bill 488, Election Districts, General Assembly, and Representatives in Congress. Committee amendments adopted. Favor report not adopted.
The committee amendment has been adopted. The question now is the adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, say no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted, recognizing the minority leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I have an
My
amendment
pleasure.
at the desk, 613520/1.
Amendment number 1.
Move so much to be considered the reading of the amendment.
So order.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
You're welcome.
For most of today and most of tomorrow, you're all going to hear more about redistricting than it probably care to, unless you are truly, truly a lover of the ways in which we have bastardized our political system, Republicans and Democrats from California to Maine and every point in between, to produce results that favor political parties as opposed to favoring citizens. Today will be the beginning of that. And the very first amendment that we will offer for your consideration today is an amendment that essentially imports the same type of standards that each one of us and each one of our districts and each one of our constituencies is based upon in the drawing of our legislative districts, and makes explicit and express that those standards will apply to Congress and to the drawing of our congressional districts. It will require that congressional districts respect natural boundaries and the geographic integrity and continuity of municipal corporations, counties, and other political subdivisions to the extent practicable. Why does to the extent practicable matter? Because the only clear beam of light in federal redistricting and gerrymandering jurisprudence is that you have to have as close as humanly possible to the exact same number of people in one district as the other. Like they don't want you to vary by 3 people if you can. So sometimes we all acknowledge that you do have to mathematically split a city, split a town, split a county, split a district. Mathematically. But to the extent that you don't have to mathematically, you shouldn't, because those places reflect contiguous areas and commonalities of interest. The east side of Baltimore, Patterson Park, and Little Italy, and Fells Point, and all of those areas have more in common with the west side of Baltimore than what the west side of Baltimore has in common with Cecil County, and the east side of Baltimore has in common with Anne Arundel County. Why do we know that? Because they're all in one city. They all vote together. And they're all represented by the same type of body, the mayor and city council of the state of Baltimore. And their legislators, when they come here, they all meet together. My friends from Baltimore City, when they call and say we're having a delegation meeting, they don't go like, hey, let's go talk to the weird bearded guy in the back from Cecil County. He's our delegation mate. Nope, nope, nope. The folks from the west side don't say, like, let's go to the Anne Arundel County delegation meeting. They've got our interests in mind. That's who's Nope, nope. They all go meet together. West side, east side, north, south, Brooklyn, all the way up to the Towson line. They all meet together because they're from Baltimore City and they are a contiguous community with a commonality of interest. But not with your map. Not with your map. Because if you did that, it would produce a result that you don't want. Montgomery County delegation meets together. The Prince George's County delegation meets together. The Anne Arundel County delegation meets together here in these halls. Anne Arundel County is about 600,000 people, just shy. It's almost big enough to have its own individual congressional district. Almost. You got to add some people in. Maybe add Calvert County in. Maybe add a little bit of Howard. Not in this map. Anne Arundel County, you've got 3 separate congresspeople. And you're going to tell yourselves that'll be better for us. That'll be better. But it won't, because not a one of them will truly have to be responsive to Anne Arundel County, because they won't rely on Anne Arundel County's communities in order to get reelected. It requires compactness. Compactness is a legal term, and it is required for your districts and for mine. It is required so that you cannot drive a line down a highway and connect one county or one area from 100 miles away to yours. We have probably only one district, to the best of my knowledge and ability to research, which, believe me, is not state of the art. We probably only have one district sitting in this room that does not have to abide by the compactness rules, and that's because it's a Voting Rights Act determined district on the Eastern Shore that was determined through prior court action and prior legislative actions that can stitch together diverse communities from a number of different counties on the Eastern Shore so as to reflect minority representation. That's probably the only one. The rest of us, we all have to be compact. And the amendment suggests that you cannot account for how individuals are registered to vote, how they voted in the past, or the political party to which they belong. Because we represent communities, not just political parties. There is an R behind my name. There is a D behind yours. But the most important thing behind my name is Allegheny, because that's who sends me there. I represent the Democrat registered voters of my section of Allegheny County as much as the Republicans. They may disagree with me. They may not vote for me. But when they need a bond bill, they got me. And that's it. And I never turn them down and say, well, you know, I didn't like you because I think maybe you're registered as a Democrat. I'm not going to pursue your community center bill. And I hope that none of you do that in your districts, because you represent all of the Republicans and the independents in those districts too. Not just the Democrats who vote for you in the primary. You represent everybody. Collectively, the 141 people in this room, from the speaker to the last row, we represent 6.3 million people in the state of Maryland. Not Democrats, not Republicans, not blacks, not whites, not conservatives, not moderates, not liberals, not progressives. We represent everybody, and we bear the weight of that responsibility. The amendment applies essentially the same requirements that Judge Battaglia put forth in her decision 4 years ago, which struck down the map that was produced in a fairly partisan process and that we voted on here, and we said we're going to have a map. And what was the purpose of that map? 8-0. Split the Eastern Shore up, drive it in different directions than what it currently was configured in. And the goal was, we did the math, we hired the computer guys, God knows they're smarter than me, and they produced a map that said, if you do this map, it'll be 8-0. The Democrat Partisan Value Index, the advantage, will be so significant that it will be almost impossible for Republicans to win anywhere. Where I live, we're majority Republicans. None of you could win in the Democratic Party where I live. I don't say that because you're not good people. I don't say that because you wouldn't have good ideas. I say that because you couldn't win. And I couldn't win in the vast majority of places where you represent. Because that's how politicized and that's how siloed we have become as a populace. You can only win in certain places if you're a Democrat, and you can only win in certain places if you're a Republican. What our amendment would do to kick off this lengthy discussion of these principles is it would say that what Judge Battaglia ruled and what, quite frankly, whoever was in charge, I don't know who was in charge 4 years ago who made these decisions, but the litigants, I believe the Attorney General at the time was Brian Frosch, the litigants in the case that was filed, they decided Judge Battaglia's opinion probably had weight. She determined that your prior map, which is very similar to the concepts and to the drawing and to the point of this map, was an extreme partisan gerrymander because it violated Article 3, Section 4 of the Maryland Constitution, and this amendment is designed to correct that and to cure that. And so those litigants 4 years ago, they decided, hey, what we did is going to be likely struck down. We'll work out a compromise. And the compromise, I don't think the compromise was necessarily fair, but as I look around the room at the eyes of many of my fellow delegates who practice law for a living, we understand that sometimes settlements aren't perfect. Sometimes settlements are just what everybody needs to do to think that there's some reasonableness to it and move the ball down the field. And that's what they decided to do. We had a 7-1 map, the Eastern Shore District, 1st District configured as it is. I don't call it the Eastern Shore District. Apologize to my friends over here. They don't own the district. It's not the Eastern Shore's district. It's also Harford County's district. It's also Baltimore County's district. They don't have enough population to constitute their own district. They have to be joined with other parts of Maryland. If anyone in this room thinks that Cecil County has more in common with Baltimore City, and let's take a look, and Howard County, and even Carroll County, than what it has in common with Kent County and Queen Anne's County, you are lying to yourselves. If anyone in this room thinks and believes that Oakland, Maryland has more in common with the part of Montgomery County that touches DC than what it does with Eastern Frederick County or Northern Carroll County, you are lying to yourselves, and you're better than that. Just take the position, we just did it because we think we can. And we don't have to follow any rules, and we did it. The amendment fixes that. The amendment requires you to live by standards that you all live by already in your legislative districts. What is good for you, because it's good for the state, is good for those Congress critters down in D.C. too, because it's good for the state. What is good for you is good for Congress. There is no reason to have separate rules and to have separate standards unless the only purpose of this is an extreme partisan gerrymander designed to reflect a partisan purpose alone. If you vote for the amendment, you fix that. If you don't, tell your constituents rules don't matter. What's good for me is not good for anybody else. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Colleagues, I would ask that you reject this amendment for some reasons. First of all, I appreciate the senior delegates' economy of words as always. But to try to be succinct here, I think some of the things he said this time were important. When he was talking about who he represents, and you're going to hear me say this throughout the day probably, is it's the juxtaposition of somehow if I'm a Democrat, I can't hear the voice of Republicans. But he made it clear that's not what he does. That's not what we should do. I think it's a misstatement to say that partisanship is the only thing that keeps us together. And while I know my colleague did talk about, you know, for some people that's the most important thing when choosing a house, I would strongly disagree. And partisanship definitely does not make a community. But I want to step back and say that, number one, this was something that this body took on in 1967. And we put it to the voters, and the voters said no. We are following the standard set by the U.S. Constitution. We're not violating the Voting Rights Act, and it's one person, one vote. The map 488 does both of those things. And I do appreciate my colleague at least acknowledging the shortcomings with Judge Battaglia's ruling, because this amendment makes it very clear that if we don't pass this amendment, then the standards that we use for our legislative body, i.e. the General Assembly, does not apply to the U.S. congressional maps that we form. Because that's what this amendment says. It says that Judge Battaglia was wrong. History says Judge Battaglia is wrong. In fact, subsequent litigation says that she was wrong in saying that somehow Article 3, Section 4 includes congressional maps. So I appreciate him acknowledging the shortcoming in that very limited holding that was not binding. And I'm sure I'll hear a lot more about it today, and there'll be a lot of jailhouse lawyers here trying to explain the law to me. I'm excited. But as for this amendment, I do appreciate the fact that he is acknowledging that currently, without his amendment, that standard does not apply to the way we make maps. So thank you. But also, I will state that, again, when this was put forth to my citizens, it was rejected. This is a decision. We are not kings here. Unlike the administration, federal level, we know that. We are merely voices. So if we want those voices to be heard, then maybe this is something that he could get on the ballot. I disagree with the way he thinks the map was drawn, and I'm sure we'll get into that in later discussion. But to say that it's impossible for Republicans to win in a Democrat district, it's not true. Historically, it's not true, because 2 of the last 4 governors have been Republican. And we can all say that Maryland is a supermajority Democrat. So, to make it clear, this is unnecessary. We are following the constitutional standard that we are required to. And as I said, and you'll hear me say it again, we're not here because we want to be here. We didn't pick this fight. But I'll be damned if I just turn the other cheek. So at the end of the day, this is unnecessary. And I'm sure we have my colleague who's going to stand up and explain the compactness, because again, he's got a bigger brain than me. But again, for all those reasons, I ask you to reject this map.
Thank you, Madam
Recognizing
Speaker.
the gentleman from Montgomery County.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank the minority leader for yielding. I'm not going to opine on a legal standard, but I do want to talk about the map a little bit, because there were a lot of things said that I think need to be looked at with a little more scrutiny. So when you talk about these ideas of respect for political subdivisions, compactness, these are good ideas regardless of what the legal standard is. There's lots of ways to draw a map. The current map splits, I think, 6 municipalities into different congressional districts in Maryland. That's the current map you're defending. This one splits 1. Now, that 1 is really important. It's Baltimore City. You talked about that. You talked about how it was bad for Baltimore to be split. Under the proposed map, Baltimore would have 3 U.S. House members. I think a lot of cities in this country would love to have 3 U.S. House members right now, especially cities that are under siege by their federal government and could use more support from their legislators. But there's also a long history in Maryland of exactly this. Until about 1950, Baltimore did have 3 members of Congress. One of those members of Congress, fun little trivia fact for you, was Thomas D'Alessandro, whose daughter is my 3rd favorite female Speaker of the House. So there's a lot of history there of Baltimore being divided, but overall this map reduces the amount of municipalities that are being split. If you look at compactness, look, it's a lot of math that none of the 3 lawyers who have been up so far really understand, but there are mathematical scores of compactness, and by those measures, several of the districts proposed today are more compact than the current lines. So we do pretty well on compactness. Now you talk about communities of interest, and that's important, and I appreciate you acknowledging that there are many areas that are common community of interest that just can't support their own member of Congress. The last time the Eastern Shore from Cecil to Worcester had its own member of Congress was 1965, because the population is just not there. The last time the Western Maryland delegation, so I guess that's the Garrett, Allegheny, Frederick, and Carroll, had its own congressman, just that district, and Washington, thank you to my friend, had its own district, was 1870. Other than that, it's always had to been drawn in other places in other ways and captured other parts of the state. So there's no perfect way to just capture what we think of as the kind of regions of the state without dipping into some of the others because of where people live and how the state is shaped. But you talk about Cecil County, and you look at a place like Elkton, you look at where are the cars going. When cars drive out of Elkton, where are they going? About 15,000 are going south on Herman Highway, and about 30,000 are going east-west on Pulaski. Well, what's east-west from there? The Baltimore region, right? That's where they're oriented, the Baltimore region. Now, I'm not saying they don't have anything in common with the lower and mid-shore. Of course they do. But they also have things in common in connectivity to the Baltimore area. And you can look at every one of these districts and how they've been laid out, and that's true. There's no perfect way to do this. I'm not saying that you couldn't draw it a different way. I heard a lot in the hearing the other night about chicken houses and chicken farms and how it was important that those with the most chicken farms be drawn together. Well, my friend, the majority leader, lives in the Tacoma Park area, and I suspect on a per capita basis they have more backyard chicken houses than most other places in the state. I probably don't think we should draw a line between Denton and Tacoma Park, but if you're looking for commonality and things in common, there are lots of ways to do it. And this map does it very well. It unites coastal communities together. It unites working class communities together. It unites communities that are oriented around the DC area together. It unites areas that are oriented around the Baltimore area together. And I'm not saying you can't nitpick what I'm saying, because of course you can talk about other ways to draw common lines of interest. That's why when you look at the history, the map has evolved over time and it's looked different. But this map does respect political subdivisions, and it does respect compactness, and it does respect community of interest, regardless of what legal standard applies. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
You're welcome. Recognizing the minority leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Have any of you looked at the map, other than those of us on the Rules Committee who were forced to do so the other night for 6 hours? Did you look at the map? I like a lot of people in this room, and I think highly of a lot of people in this room. And I really, really find it impossible to believe that many of you would pick this map up and would look at those lines and those communities and those connectedness, and you would say this is compact. And you would say that this represents communities of interest, and you would say that this makes sense. I find it hard to believe, because I know many of you, and I know you to be honest, decent people, and you can't say it. Just say it. Just say it. We hate Donald Trump. We were told by the Speaker of the House, or not the Speaker, the Majority Leader, the Minority Leader, Hakeem Jeffries, we were told we got to do this. We got to do it. You've all said it. I was at the hearing. Delegate from Charles County, he said it. He didn't say, you know, we really tried hard to protect communities of interest. We really tried hard to keep the, I just heard about how we're protecting shore communities, communities along the water. Look at the map. When the map crosses from Queen Anne's County into Anne Arundel County, it picks up a little teeny tiny spot of Anne Arundel County along the water. Where is that? You're sitting in it. Annapolis. Why is that? Because Annapolis is majority Democrat. Does it go north of here and pick up Severna Park and Pasadena? Well, no. Why would it pick them up? Because they're Republicans. Where does it go? Does it go south along the river? The Spa Creek, the South River, the Chesapeake Bay that has something in common maybe with Queen Anne's? Well, hell no, because that's where the Republicans live. Where's it go? Well, we go over to Fort Meade. I forgot that Fort Meade was a coastal community. They must have had a flood. It goes over to Odenton. And then it crosses into Howard County, that mecca of beach living. And when it's in Howard County, it doesn't go out to western Howard County, because that's where the Republicans live. It just goes to Columbia, and it stops. Hard stop. We win. You lose. It's compact. It's contiguous. It's communities of interest. It's not. It's not. And I will accept that people drive through Cecil County to get to Baltimore City. They drive through Cecil County to get to Philadelphia. They drive through Cecil County probably to get away from the delegate from Cecil County. I'm not sure. But I will tell you that if you think that, I just added this up, the 3rd district, which was described under a prior map by a very well-respected federal judge, is looking like a broken-winged pterodactyl laying across the state. I'd love to see what Paul Niemeyer, who was a law school professor of mine, I'd love to see what he says about this map. Because this map, the 3rd district, you're only required to have 771,000 people to make a district. Okay, that's the numerical basis. This map includes parts of the District 3, Howard County, population over 300,000. Carroll County, population over 170,000. Baltimore County, population approaching 900,000. Baltimore City, population just under 600,000. Harford County, population just under 300,000. Cecil County, population 110,000. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 jurisdictions from the Delaware line to the Montgomery County line are cobbled together to add up to 771,000 people. Don't look me in the eye and tell me that's compact, that's contiguous, it reflects a commonality of interest. It is extreme partisan gerrymandered, period. If you want to do it, do it. Run the risk. Take it. Go to court. See what happens. I hate gerrymandering. We're going to talk more about all of the things when we get to third reader. We're going to talk about Texas and California and Trump and Democrats. We're going to talk about all of it. But this is a textbook example of extreme partisan gerrymandering. Adopt a standard which would prevent it, because I believe that all of you are good people who know that it's the right thing to do. Thank you.
Recognizing the gentleman from Cecil County.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Back here, keeping it weird, Cecil County style. I want to add a couple points of clarity, because we've talked about what I'll call the 3 C's at length here already. I want to talk about the 4th C. Having purchased a few diamonds in my day, I think it's important to touch on the 4th C, which is Cecil County. Okay, and I want to pose some questions here that I'm going to answer myself. 1, did this legislative redistricting committee have any meetings in Cecil County? No. Did any elected officials or citizens or whomever have a say in this map? No. They didn't. We've heard a lot of historic reference and fun facts. I will throw some fun facts out. We used to have at-large congressional seats. You ran statewide. Those were determined to be unconstitutional. We've heard about this county or that county used to have a seat determined unconstitutional. There's a reason we don't do that anymore. It's because we've gotten here now in lawsuits and just better minds prevailing. But this bill seems to take us back to the bad old days. I had my staff look up the last time that Cecil County was divorced from the Eastern Shore for a congressional district, and that was 1899. That was the last time that we were separated from the Eastern Shore. I rise to support this amendment today because this map is a naked attempt at pure gerrymandering. It splits up the 3 C's that we've already talked about, and Cecil County is probably the one that suffers the most. We like our congressman. He's won the entire county with a huge plurality of votes. This is an attempt to unseat him. It just is. And that's okay. We can be honest about that. We can say that maybe there's other parts of the state that, boy, we wish that Eastern Shore over there had somebody different. Well, we should do something about that. And that's at a detriment to the counties on the shore. Yes, do we share some commonalities with Western Maryland and Southern Maryland? Absolutely. We're all citizens. We all live here in Maryland. We're all Marylanders. But when it comes down to our congressional district, that's who we identify with the most. It's been 125, 30 years of that way, and this amendment seeks to keep that. It seems to apply what's good for the goose is good for the gander. It puts both the legislative districts at our level and at the federal level in the same posture. That's why I rise today to support the amendment, and I'm asking you to put up a green vote. As a non-lawyer and a non-cartographer, this amendment makes sense. Thank you.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I have a few
You're
questions
welcome.
for the maker of the amendment.
I like that tie.
Thank you. I can't say the same. So I'm sure it says Trump.
That's Armani. You should like that.
It says Trump made in
You're
China.
slick.
I get it. So we do understand that talking about this test, this compactness test, because you kind of talked both sides. You said basically, we mentioned all these communities of interest, and we can agree that if we try to tie, as the previous speaker said, all these communities of interest, this would be a disaster, right? So the goal isn't to tie all the communities of interest together, is it?
The goal should be, to the greatest extent possible, as
Yes.
is required under the law. Maryland is, I believe, my colleague from Montgomery County stated, it is an irregularly shaped state. It is not like one
Correct.
of the states out in the Midwest, the Great Plains, that's a square, that's a rectangle. We were shaped by essentially water, by rivers and by a bay, and by the Mason-Dixon line. The goal would be, if you respect communities of interest, see this map? Just pick a point. East, west, south, go from community to community, county to county, until you hit 771. And when you reach a point, maybe you go south, maybe you go east, maybe you go west, say to yourself, which one of those points has more in common with the rest of that district in terms of how they work and how they live and how they travel and how they associate, and then put them together. That's how a fair and reasonable, compact and contiguous map is drafted. It's not drafted with reference to Democratic PVI percentages.
Thank you again for the economy of words. And we agree
Sometimes you got to answer truthfully.
thank you, no matter how long it takes.
Right.
But we talk about compactness, contiguity, equal population, due regard for natural and political boundaries. But in addition to that, there are other things that can be taken in, even by your standard, correct? Like political balancing, incumbents, non-political reasons like communities of interest, things like that. When you're forming a map under the standard that you propose, there are other factors, and the way I believe our state looks at it is they cannot be subordinated. The main four factors we have to use, but the other factors like political, it cannot be subordinate. Or
That's if you're reading from some of the legislative redistricting cases from long ago, they talked about that. They said,
Correct.
look, you can have political considerations,
Correct.
but they cannot be primary. These factors have to be the primary driver of the drafting of a legislative district. That doesn't mean to suggest that you can't have some political consideration, because they are drawn by political bodies, or at least voted on by political bodies, but they have to be subordinated to the principles of fairness that are articulated in this. And you know as well as I do, what Judge Battaglia found is that if you violate compactness, contiguousness, and contiguousness and commonality of interest, what you've done is violate the concept in Maryland law of having free and fair elections and the Equal Protection Act. I thought everyone in this room was a big fan of equal protection.
Right. And so, to be clear, we talked about Judge Battaglia, and I'll clarify for the body, not to bore everyone, when we talked about how she basically told us what we thought. And in 1972, because that's what she referred to, that we wanted to include Article 3, Section 4, correct? She also, when she was talking about free and fair elections, she was talking about Article 7 of the Maryland Declaration of Rights, right?
Article 7 encompasses free and fair elections, and then also it has some attenuation to the Equal Protection Clause.
Right, and she actually said that the citizens of Maryland since 1976 or 1776 have had a particular ability to elect their legislator, i.e., the Declaration of Rights, free and fair elections. And she went back to 1776.
Seems like a very important year.
Yeah, talking about every citizen had that right, but we know that even that reference that she made was incorrect, because original version of that said that the free and fair elections for every man having property, common interest, and attachment to the community. That's correct, right? The original?
If you're reading the language, I'll trust you.
Wow.
I don't have it in front of me.
So, to be clear, when we talk about free and fair elections, she was referring to this entirely, we'll call antiquated concept, where only people, white men that own land, could participate, because that was considered free and fair back then.
I think that was heavily amended after 1776, as we all know, by, I believe, the 13th and 14th Amendments, and by the bloodshed of hundreds of thousands of Americans who got rid of the horrible institution of slavery and institutional, legalized racism during that time. There's
Right.
no question about that.
Thank you. So, to be clear, even that reference that she made was incorrect. In addition, as I've stated earlier, the argument that somehow this body inferred that we also wanted Congress to be pulled into Article 3, Section 4. But as I've said earlier, the very ballot question posed to our citizenry said nothing about Congress. It only mentioned the number of legislators and how the map should be drawn, correct?
I'm not sure, but I guess I would respond with this. If Attorney General Brian Frosh, lifetime far progressive Democrat, and Lynn Battaglia, who was the United States Attorney appointed by a Democratic president, who was the chief of staff for a United States Democratic senator, and who was appointed by a Democratic governor to serve on our Court of Appeals, now Supreme Court, if they all believe that, if they all believe what you believe, then why didn't they take it 4 years ago to the Court of Appeals and affirm that the law is what you say it is?
That's the cool thing about just being a lowly delegate. I don't know, but I can read it to you because it says the state shall be divided by law into legislative districts for the election of members of the Senate and the House of Delegates. Each legislative district shall contain 1 senator and 3 delegates. That's Article 3, Section 3, referring to legislative districts. Article 3, Section 4 just said each legislative district shall consist of adjoining territory, compact in form, substantially equal in population, due regard shall be given natural boundaries. Basically what you're talking about now that you're
Correct.
trying to amend. But it also says on the ballot question of 1972 that we posed to the people that she refers to that this amendment would increase the membership of the state Senate from 43 to 47 and decrease the House of Delegates from 142 to 141. The state would reapportion for the 1974 election into 47 legislative districts, each containing 1 senator, 3 delegates. The state now has 1 set of districts for elections of senators and another for delegates. But you know what wasn't mentioned there to the public? Congress. Because in 1967, as I said, when we posed that to our voters, they said no. So in 1972, when we were talking about that standard of compactness, the thing that you're asking for now, because you agree, it's not currently in our Constitution.
I don't agree.
I just read it to you.
I don't agree. I agree with Judge Battaglia, who said that the reference in Article 3, Section 4 to legislative districts should be interpreted and extrapolated to congressional districts. That's her opinion.
Right.
Your opinion is she was wrong. We both practiced law long enough to know we don't get to make those decisions. If you think that the trial judge, or in this case, I think she was an advisory opinion judge, if someone thought she was wrong, they were incumbent to take that to the state's appellate court, which can issue a binding opinion on the issue. Brian Frosch didn't think that was such a good idea.
No, Brian
He
Frosch
cut a
had
deal.
Brian Frost had 5 days to redraw the map, or someone not elected was going to, and he chose to do it that way. But to be clear, what you're saying is that by writing that and putting it to the people in 1972, that we as a body were just lying to the people, because our intent also was Congress. Or are you saying that a judge should be able to tell us what our intent? Now, I'm assuming this isn't one of y'all's rogue judges, right?
I'm not sure what that means. I can tell you, you and I were barely alive in 1972, so I'm not really sure what the intent of anyone was. You're a little bit older than me, I think, but you weren't very much older in 1972. So I can also tell you that Judge Battaglia's opinion suggests that judges cannot infer from the overall rejection of the constitutional amendment that did not just include this one section. It had hundreds, dozens of different things in it, and that was rejected by the voters, that they specifically rejected her interpretation that legislative district means congressional district. She determined that. She said you can't go in and say just because, for example, an amendment on the floor was rejected here or a bill was rejected in a committee. Someone might reject your bill simply for a variety of reasons that have nothing to do with the merits of the bill. We cannot extrapolate that, therefore, the legislature has made an ultimate decision that they don't like the policy. You can't take what happens in the legislature as evidence of intent unless the people said it was their intent. And I think Judge Battaglia said, if what the folks wanted to do back when you and I were in diapers was say Article 3, Section 4 only applies to legislative districts, they had to use those 3 words. Only applies to. You don't need to be a lawyer to figure that out. And they chose not to do that. So that can also be interpreted as they meant to include the congressional districts as was included in the original draft.
And then we could agree then that means that ballot question that we posed to the people in 1972 was illegal and misleading. Because if that was indeed our intent, we did not let the public decide on that, did we?
I think almost all of our ballot questions are misleading because they're written without reference to what the underlying policy is. When's the last time? I think this might have been the last time a ballot question was ever turned down in Maryland.
So are you saying that we misled the public in 1972?
I think this room misleads the public an awful lot. Not intentionally, but I think it happens, my friend.
I'm sorry that you feel that way, but again,
I
I'll
think
say
a lot of
this.
people feel that way.
I have more faith in this body than that, and that I know if that was our intent to use the word Congress, we would have. And I know if that was our intent to use the word Congress and we did not let the people decide that intent, then we have done a foul service to our people. I have the faith that what exactly we meant, which is exactly what was written, it was reviewed by the written by the Secretary of State and reviewed by the Attorney General before it was put forth to the people. Because that's how our ballot questions are laid out. So to be clear, what the people have decided was, 1, they didn't want this to apply to Congress. 2, when they had another opportunity, we left Congress out of it. So you have one judge on a circuit court level, just to be clear, and for the body, who decided that because we left the word Congress and airplanes and municipalities, that I guess it should apply to that too. Because by that logic, other legislative bodies, I guess, also should apply to. But again, I don't want to, enough said about that. But what I will say is, basically what you're saying is because of this confusion that you and I are talking about and it not being clear, this is why you think we need your amendment, correct?
Yes, I think you need to clarify the law. I think that's what legislatures do.
Right.
I think judges all the time look at things that they construe as ambiguous, and they substitute their judgment. And I think you should clarify the law, and that's why I would ask you, do you think we should have two separate standards for how you draw out the legislative districts to represent people in Annapolis and the congressional districts for how you represent the people in Washington, D.C.? Do you believe that?
Until the people decide otherwise, yes, because again, in 1967, they were given the opportunity to say yes to that question. They said no. So as a body, we fixed that. And to be very clear, excuse me, to be very clear, it is not our decision this day. And no, let me step back. So basically what you're saying by this amendment is because it's not currently in our Constitution, you'd like to put it there. Fair?
I'm saying that because a court, in my opinion, the only court that has really looked at this particular issue, and a judge that was universally respected and appointed as a Democratic, longtime political figure in this state, and she construed the same thing I construed, and because it continues to be a point of controversy, as evidenced by your bill, which suggests that the people will determine that these standards do not apply. Your bill says that they do not apply. We're going to put it out for a constitutional referendum. I got news for you. Roll up to your local bar, your child care center, your school. Try to get 50 people engaged in this conversation. You're all bored to tears already. Try to get 50 people to understand compact, contiguous, and commonalities of interest and say that reflects their vote. You're acknowledging that you need to put it in the bill to say that they don't apply. I'm saying that they do apply, and it's for the same reason, because it's somewhat unclear. And the question I ask all 140 of you is, what do you think is right? Do you think it's right to have the same standards for you as it is for a congressperson? Or do you think that we have to live by one set of rules, but you can draw those maps however else you want for somebody else for a purely partisan purpose? That's your decision to make. It's your conscience. It's your vote.
Recognizing the floor leader.
And I would just ask our members to follow U.S. Constitution because that's what we've been doing. Thank you.
Recognizing the gentleman from Eastern Maryland.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
My pleasure.
And I hope you guys like my tie.
It's nice.
Thank you.
I know it wasn't a big endorsement, but it's nice.
No, but seriously. Make no mistake about it, House Bill 488, and I will be talking about the amendment, but House Bill 488, we're moving this bill because of District 1. And if you don't believe that that's the case, like our minority leader said, you're lying to yourselves. We're doing this for two reasons. One, because Texas did it. And two, we don't like the congressman in District 1. The issue at hand here is commonality and compactness. This is what this amendment's all about. And the way that District 1 is conformed now does those things. And we always talk about fairness. And if we have these provisions in the law, this is the most fair way to do it. In fact, you guys have even conceded that. And the way District 1 is drawn now, we actually have had two congressmen in District 1 who lived on the Eastern Shore over the last 25 years. Congressman Crowderville was one, and the other is Wayne Gilchrist. But both of those guys were Democrats. In an R+10 district, two Democrats still won because of the provisions that this amendment have in place. It makes that district fair. Those two Democrats won in an R+10 district. With the new maps that are drawn now, it goes from R+10 to D+12. It's impossible moving forward if this passes that we will ever have another Republican in District 1 ever reelected. We may very likely have a Democrat from the Eastern Shore, but they'd have to compete with difference in commonality with Howard County, because that's where our population density is. There's 450,000 people in the 9 counties on the Eastern Shore. Now that included Cecil, but now we're cut that back, so we probably have fewer than 400,000 people on the Eastern Shore that will now be in District 1. The vast majority will now be Anne Arundel County and Howard County. Even a Democrat now will have a hard time winning on the 9 counties on the Eastern Shore. And we're very unique. And you know, when we talk about silos, and I mentioned too, we had 2 Democrats and R+10. That's just a testament that the folks on the Eastern Shore aren't closed-minded. We're not in a silo. We're willing to elect somebody that may be a little bit different than us in ideology. That's what that meant. And that happened twice. So again, let's talk about fairness. I mean, are we more concerned? Are we more loyal to national party politics? Are we more loyal to our neighbors here in Maryland? Is it more important that we fall in line as soldiers, you know, moving forward from a national interest? Or we really truly care about one Maryland? We talk about it all the time. We give these long-winded speeches about how we have to get together, how to take care of ourselves. But what this bill does is the exact opposite of that. And what this amendment will do, it will add fairness to this process. So both Republicans and Democrats on the Eastern Shore, Cecil County, and Harford County will have a fair shot at actually winning an election. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
You're welcome. Recognizing the delegate from Montgomery County.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Just a
You're
couple
welcome.
of corrections for the floor. Congressman Gilchrist was a Republican. He might have been a more moderate Republican, but he was a Republican. That was the party that he was elected to. He would elect and vote for the Republican Speaker candidate in the U.S. House of Representatives. You might be thinking of Roy Dyson. He was a Democrat who represented the Eastern Shore. He actually lived in southern Maryland because back in the day, instead of using the bridge that 70,000 people commute over to connect both sides of the district, actually just jumped over the bay from the Eastern Shore to southern Maryland. I also just want to clarify that when I was talking about a coastal communities district, I was actually talking about Congressional District 2 under the proposed map, not 1. I would never call Congressional District 1 coastal communities because of Caroline County, which, as I know well, has no beachfront property, and so we don't want to leave our friends from Caroline County out of the title of the district, so Congressional District 2 is the coastal communities district. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The question before the House is the adoption of the amendment. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, say no. Roll call. The clerk will hold the roll. Has everyone recorded their vote? The clerk will take the call. There being 39 votes in the negative, the amendment fails. 39. I would like to take a minute to recognize an amazing friend of this House, someone who served in this House, and someone who I call a sister, the Lieutenant Governor. Welcome. Lieutenant Governor Aruna Miller. Are there any additional amendments to the bill to its title?
Yes.
Recognizing the gentleman from Southern Maryland.
Thank you,
Good
Madam
morning.
Good morning. That was an interesting debate. I'll keep this very short because I know our floor leader and bill sponsor appreciates brevity. Compact and continuous in the last debate.
You have
there
an
was-
amendment? Can
Yes,
we
I
please
do.
go through the amendment first?
Oh, you want me to do the amendment first? That's
Yes,
fine.
please. Thank you.
Amendment at the desk, 313921/1.
Amendment number 1.
So be considered reading of the amendment?
So order?
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
You're welcome.
This takes this map in a little bit different direction. It strikes the entire language of the constitutional amendment because I believe it has a problem under Article 3, Section 28, that the map only requires 71 votes. But this includes a constitutional amendment, which is 85 votes, and it's veto-proof by the governor. So we're rolling these two together. The sponsor's trying to use one vote to bypass the governor's constitutional check on the map. And I wouldn't want to violate the governor's constitutional map check. So with that, I believe it's very important that we take a good look at this, maybe even get an Attorney General's opinion. So with that, I'd like to execute rule number 53, which is a one-day layover on this amendment. Thank you, Madam Speaker. And that's supported, this motion needs to be supported by at least 5 people rising. So appreciate that. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
No, you're welcome. The delegate is supported. House Bill 488 and the amendment have been laid over for one day. I would like to state the following for tomorrow. Layover effective today for this bill or any other amendments to this bill that you have time to put those in for discussion tomorrow, okay? So tomorrow, the chair will not allow a second layover on this bill. So let's be clear. You have amendments, you bring them tomorrow, and we will discuss this bill tomorrow. Make sure that you submit them. There will not be a second layover on this bill. Thank you. That ends the work of the desk. Committee announcements, appropriations,
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The full committee will not meet. Listen for subcommittee announcements.
economic matters.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Economic Matters will have not bill hearings, briefings today. We will meet at noon.
Environment and transportation.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The House Environment and Transportation Committee will have briefings starting at 1 p.m.
Government, labor, and elections.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. GLE will have briefing beginning at 1 p.m.
Health.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The Health Committee will have briefings starting at 1 p.m., followed by bill hearings at 2 p.m.
Judiciary.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The House Judiciary Committee will have a fiscal briefing at 1 p.m., bill hearings starting at 2 p.m., or within 15 minutes after the briefing, whichever is earlier. Thank you.
You're welcome. Ways and Means.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The Ways and Means Committee will meet for bill hearings at 1 p.m.
Subcommittee announcements, recognizing the delegate from Baltimore City.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
You're welcome.
The Education and Economic Development Subcommittee of Appropriations will be meeting at 1 p.m. in the Appropriations Hearing Room.
Any others? Recognizing the delegate from Montgomery County.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
You're welcome.
The Energy Subcommittee will be meeting after briefings today. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Recognizing the subcommittee chair on natural resources from Baltimore City.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
You're welcome.
Natural Resources and Open Spaces Subcommittee will meet tomorrow morning at 10 in the conference room in the Environment and Transportation Committee suite for just a meet and greet. Please stop by anytime you can between 10 and 10:45. Thank you so much.
Recognizing anyone else? Any other subcommittee announcements? Recognizing the delegate from Montgomery County.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The Public Safety and Administration Subcommittee will be having budget hearings today at 1 p.m. in room 150.
Thank you. Any other subcommittee announcements? Recognizing the Motor Vehicle Subcommittee.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The Motor Vehicle and Transportation Subcommittee will hold its organizational meeting today. It's scheduled at 3, but really after Environment and Transportation bill hearings in the Western Maryland room. Thank you.
You're welcome. Seeing no other subcommittee announcements, we are going to go on to delegation announcements. Recognizing the delegate from Montgomery County.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The Montgomery County House delegation will meet tomorrow morning virtually at 9 a.m.
Recognizing the delegate from Anne Arundel County.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Anne Arundel County delegation will meet at 8:30 a.m. tomorrow virtually. Thank you.
Recognizing the Deputy Minority Whip.
Minority Whip's fine, thank you. The Frederick County delegation is going to meet virtually tomorrow at 9 a.m.
Want to make sure that you know that I got it right now.
Minority Whip.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And now we're going to go to the middle, then to the left, recognizing the delegate from Prince George's County.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The Prince George's County House delegation will meet tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. virtually. And then after floor tomorrow, we will be taking a delegation picture right here in the hallway at the steps. So please dress your best.
Recognizing the delegate from Eastern Maryland.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The Eastern Shore delegation will be meeting tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. via Zoom.
Recognizing the delegate from Baltimore City.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The Baltimore City delegation will meet virtually tomorrow, Friday, at 9 a.m. Thank you.
Recognizing the delegate from Baltimore County.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The Baltimore County delegation will be meeting at 9 a.m. virtually, and the Education Subcommittee of that delegation will be meeting at 4:30 p.m. today virtually.
Any other delegation announcements? Now we're going to go to caucus announcements. Recognizing the Women Caucus Chair.
Thank you so much, Madam Speaker. Thank you, colleagues. Just a reminder, we are closing in on the end of our 2-week Martin Luther King Day of Service project as we are lifting up and supporting the Family YMCA at Druid Hill in Baltimore City. If you have not done so already, please do consider giving to this, whether it be personal hygiene items, feminine products, baby child care, and especially over-the-counter medications, which can easily be obtained at your local store right here in Annapolis. They need our help, and I'm so thankful to each and every one of you who has participated. We will be closing the drive tomorrow evening, close of business Friday. Thank you.
Recognizing the delegate from Prince George's County.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Thank you to everyone who attended the priorities night last night for the Latino caucus. Just a quick reminder that we are meeting tomorrow at 1 o'clock for our legislative review. So please do submit your legislation for consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other caucus announcements? Recognizing the delegate from Howard County.
Yes, and I'm speaking. Thank you, Madam Speaker. Reminder that the Women's Caucus will be doing its legislative review meeting on Monday evening. Any bills submitted by this evening, about 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, will be considered on Monday evening, so please get them to us. If you need the form, you can send an email to Women's Caucus, Women's Caucus at house.whatever, and we will get it on the list. Thank you.
Any other caucus announcements? Seeing none, any personal or guest announcement? Recognizing the delegate from Baltimore City.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'm not sure if they have joined us. I think they were running a little late, but the Center for Urban Families, an amazing nonprofit in West Baltimore, doing amazing work around helping fathers and families be successful through workforce development and reentry work. They are here today for their day of action, so please, if you get a chance to meet them, they'll be walking around. Please get to know them, get to know about their work. They're doing amazing work in the city to make sure that our fathers are being better people in their families. Thank you so much, Madam Speaker.
You're welcome. Recognizing the delegate from Baltimore City.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I just wanted to take this opportunity to do a personal announcement. The person is not here, but today is my grandniece's 4th birthday. And it's a big deal to me, and it's a testament to the work that we do here because, I'm sorry, 4 years ago she was born at 24 weeks and a day. She had a sister 4 days before her who did not make it. But to me, it is a miracle because we have to be thankful about the work we do here every day. It is so hard to tell people what we do and how we do it because it's in words and it is not in quick actions or deeds. But it does pay off its dividends in the long run. She is a tiny terror. And people who know this, it's Auntie's baby, my little Aquila the bee. She is thriving. She is fine. She was in the hospital for 6 months. She came out in May of 2022. At the same time, she should have been born with her sister. She had, of course, tubes and medicines, but she defied all odds. And she is a highly functioning, overly talkative, very smart individual, but I say that to say if it's not for the work we do here, if it's not for the programs that we fund, if it's not for the research that we gather around, these things, these miracles are not possible. So I would like to thank us for doing the work that we do to affect the lives of the people we serve every day, and thank you for the work that we do so that I can have my tiny little terror, Aquila the bee.
Recognizing the delegate from Howard County.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
You're welcome.
Good morning, colleagues. Please join me in welcoming Henry Bonick to Annapolis. Henry is a junior at Glen Elk High School in Howard County and is shadowing me for the day to fulfill his GT mentorship project led by his teacher, Miss Layla Chockett. GT Mentorship is a specialized program that allows students to select a topic, work with a mentor expert in the field, and outline a plan that is helpful for improving the field of work. His project, Beast of Burden, America and its reliance on H-2A labor centers around how the guest worker system can adapt to mass deportations, which have led to a lack of workers in the American agricultural industry. He is now eager to learn more about the state legislative process and legal system of how societal changes are created. Please join me in welcoming him. Thank you.
Recognizing the delegate from Frederick.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I want to announce that there will be a meeting of the Karaoke Caucus this evening at 200 Taylor Avenue at the Residence Inn. We will convene at 7:30 or whenever we reach quorum. While I cannot guarantee a celebrity sighting at every meeting of the caucus, last week Kevin Bacon did come through the lobby, so all of you who were there are now 1 degree of Kevin Bacon. And so hope to see many of you there tonight. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
You're welcome. Recognizing the other delegate from Frederick County.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And colleagues, we have a special birthday today that impacts all of us here at the House of Delegates. And I wanted to wish a very special happy birthday to our very own House Administrator, Morgan Streeter.
And as a birthday gift, can you please, every time you see him today, tell him thank you for everything he does for us, okay? Recognizing the delegate from Prince George's County.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you, everyone. I want to thank my colleague from the Vampire Caucus for making announcements the last few days and last week. And I just wanted to remind everybody that next Wednesday is the blood drive. And we really need everyone who can to step up and do what you can, because the only way you could get blood in order to save lives is for people to roll up their sleeves and share what they have if they can. Not everyone can, not everybody has the ability to do that. But if you can, please, there are flyers all over the place now in the elevators and everywhere. Next Wednesday, all day, the Bloodmobile will be outside the House of Delegates office. Thank you.
Recognizing the delegate from Anne Arundel.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
You're welcome.
Colleagues, you may have received an email from my office about a virtual lunch and learn for scalp cooling treatment, and that is a treatment that preserves hair during chemotherapy. So we may be indisposed tomorrow from 12 to 12:30. I have a strong feeling of that. However, if you could share that lunch and learn link with your staff and anyone who'd be interested in learning more about this groundbreaking treatment, we would greatly appreciate it. Thank you.
You're welcome. Recognizing the gentleman from Southern Maryland.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I want to
You're
take this
welcome.
opportunity to recognize the doctor today. It's Dr. Ann Benefield. She's an OB-GYN from St. Mary's County. I think it's your 4th year back here again, so I'm glad you keep coming back and take care of us. Thank you.
Recognizing the gentleman from Baltimore County.
Yes, thank you. I just want to reiterate the words of my colleague about the blood bank. Ladies and gentlemen, I wished, and I say this, I wished I could give blood, but I am not allowed because I've got a chemical in my body that's been there for 50-some years that it would be destroying. But I implore you, I know just how important it is for a blood to be given, because it has saved my life. It has saved countless people that I have friends with. And I just wish that I could give. Every time I go, I'm thinking maybe they got a new chemical that they can take my blood and clean it out, but they can't. But I would love to be able to give the blood and to save somebody's life. So I implore you to do that. Thank you.
Thank you. Recognizing the gentleman from Montgomery County.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I just wanted to, well, hold on. Let's see. Sorry. Oh, yikes. So I just wanted to first just formally apologize to the pages, actually, Madam Speaker, for the 300 times that the page button has been mashed today on the floor. Purely accidental, all 300 of them. But in all seriousness, colleagues, if you could take a moment. This is a happy time. Say hi. Okay, he had his chance. If everyone could take a second to put your hands together before he freaks out too much for my two most disgruntled constituents, Finn and Ozzie Stewart.
Recognizing the delegate from Montgomery County.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. To the pages, my daughter only pushed the button about 5 or 10 times. She did ask if I was going to introduce her, so she asked and then told me how much stage fright she had. She doesn't realize that I have it too every time I stand up on this floor, because she doesn't think adults make mistakes, just kids do. Stand back up. All right. Anyway, thank you, Madam Speaker. My daughter, A.J. Lineman. Thank you.
Welcome. Any other person or announcement? Recognizing the delegate from Howard County.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for my
You're
second
welcome.
time today.
It's okay.
Wanted to remind everyone that today is Acupuncture Day here in the House of Delegates. They are in room 170 or 180, I'm not sure which, I think it's 180, until 4 o'clock this afternoon. So please stop by. They have snacks and other stuff, but maybe they can also relax y'all just a little bit. That would be good. Have a good afternoon.
Thank you. Any other personal or guest announcements? All right, so listen. I want to take a minute to thank the floor leader, the minority leader, the minority whip, and everyone, I got it right, and everyone for having a civil, respectful debate. And you know, there were little ones here that were watching, and it was beautiful to see because we have to model good behavior for them. So I want to thank you so much. Tomorrow, it's going to be a long day. We have 2 bills on the floor, and we'll be here for a little while. If you have amendments, again, please bring them. And again, let's model what we did today. And can you bring the little ones tomorrow too? Thank you. All right, quorum call.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their presence? The clerk would take the call. There being 136 members present, the House is still in session. Recognizing the majority leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
You're welcome.
I move that the House stands adjourned until Friday, January 30th at 11 o'clock a.m.
Take good care of you.